A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to yet another episode of Perceptive Learning Zone. And today we pick up where we left off in the last session. And we'd like to talk a bit more about cybersecurity. Today, I want to focus especially on assessing Pakistan's cybersecurity landscape and passing my verdict in the process. I remember there was actually an article that was written by Gulrez Iqbal and Aisha Khalid for a hub or a engine, I would say, a website by the name of Modern Diplomacy. And this was actually the title of that article, which also happens to be the title of this podcast, Assessing Pakistan's Cybersecurity Landscape. So I was like, rather than make my own layman interpretations and unsophisticated analysis, let's just leave it to the experts, right? So, as per their report, let's see what we can learn about our country's CS landscape. So, Pakistan's history of cybersecurity policy development, well, we see that it can be traced back to the early 2000s. And this is when the ETO, that was known as the Electronic Transactions Ordinance, it was passed in 2002. And this primarily dealt with the protection of Pakistan's e-commerce at the national as well as the international level. And then in 2007, you have the National Response Center for Cyber Crimes, which was established under the auspice supervision of the FIA, that was the Federal Investigation Agency, to investigate and prevent cyber crimes in the country. And the government of Pakistan had actually sort of launched the National Action Plan, which in 2014, the purpose of which was to counter terrorism as well as extremism, right? And this included provisions for strengthening the levels of cybersecurity in the country, right? So later on, when the Prevention of Electronic Crimes Act bill was passed, as we talked about in the previous podcast, it was passed by the National Assembly in 2016. So this bill sort of introduced provisions for the prosecution of cyber crimes. And this included hacking, it included unauthorized access to data, and obviously other modes of cyber terrorism. And I feel apart from this, one of the notable initiatives was actually the establishment of national cybersecurity policy that was launched in 2021. And this policy aims to enhance digital security by addressing by challenges which include weak enforcement and lack of data protection. And through I mean, it also addresses governance issues. It focuses on audits. It stresses on the need for collaboration, for effective implementation. And through the implementation of these policies, legalization, the legislative reforms, establishment of institutions, as well as awareness initiatives, Pakistan is forming a cyber ecosystem that is secure, that works quite effectively and bolsters the resilience of infrastructure. Um, if we examine the legal contours of Pakistan's cyberspace, I feel like two significant pieces of legislation, they play a very, let's say, a very crucial role in maintaining law and order, as well as combating the emerging threats in the form of, in the digital age, by granting power to the agencies to operate. Now, the Federal Investigation Agency Act that was passed in 1974, this established the Federal Investigation Agency as the lead federal organization. And the Pakistan Telecommunication Reorganization Act that was passed, that was promulgated in 1996, well, it empowered the Pakistan Telecommunication Authority to regulate as well as police the telecommunication sector. Under the Federal Investigation Agency Act in 1974, the FIA has extensive powers to investigate various crimes with a particular focus on cyber crimes as well as transnational organized crime. And the FIA's, I feel, cross-border jurisdiction, its coordination with Interpol, that makes it a very key and robust player in matters of national security. The PTA, which was established, right, under the the Pakistan Telecommunication Reorganization Act of 1996, like I talked about before, it regulates and polices the telecommunication sector. It blocks websites, it regulates content, and it secures the internet. It's collaboration, with social media businesses and computer emergency response organizations sort of plays a massive role in protecting crucial organizations. So the FIA and PTA, they need resources, they need training, they borrow international coordination in order to find effective solutions to these changing problems. After that, I feel like another of Pakistan's cybercrime law is PICA, that is PECA, right? It criminalizes cyber crimes. While PECA provides a very comprehensive legal framework, there are limitations in terms of judicial orders for legal action. The law designates the FIA as the sole authorized agency to investigate cybercrimes. And PCA also emphasizes preventive measures and outlines procedures for search and seizure, data retention, as well as international cooperation. And strengthening cybercrime laws and data protection is essential, ladies and gentlemen, for securing a safe, sound digital environment. And then we talk about the Personal Protection Bill, right? Pakistan's Personal Data Protection Bill was passed in 2021, and this is a major step towards digital privacy protection. Now, privacy and dignity, they are constitutional rights under Article 14. And in an age of electronic transaction, in an age of cross-border exchanges, the gathering and processing personal data, this whole mechanism must be regulated very efficiently. So the purpose of this bill, this personal protection bill, which was introduced by the Ministry of Information of Technology and Telecommunication, its objective, its overarching purpose is to build a legal framework that respects the rights and freedom of individuals while also assuring the secure processing, obtaining, retaining, usage, as well as the disclosure of personal data. And this framework will be established by sort of devising a legal framework in return that protects the right as well as the freedom of individuals. And it defines fundamental ideas, sort of what sort of fundamental ideas are we talking about, right? We're talking about the data subject, we're talking about personal data, the data controller, the data processor, as well as the processing itself. So data subjects can access, correct, revoke, and stop harmful processing under the bill. And then, fellas, we have data controllers who must, process personal data in an adequate and necessary manner for legitimate purposes. And the data controller must notify and seek consent for data collection and usage. Now, the bill requires data controllers and processors to secure personal data. The National Commission for Personal Data Protection of Pakistan, it enforces data protection, right? It prevents misuse, it raises awareness, it handles complaints. The bill can lead to penalties as well as, I would say, it can also lead to jail time, right? And the timing of this legislation is very crucial. It couldn't have come at a better time. You see, global governments are now recognizing the need for personal data protection laws, obviously due to the rapid growth of e-commerce and cross-border transactions. And compliance with this bill will not only protect individuals' rights, but also enable Pakistani entrepreneurs to compete globally and secure a significant share of global trade. So it is essential for all stakeholders, particularly the data subjects, to understand their rights and obligations under the bill to ensure full compliance and reap the benefits of enhanced data protection. And then obviously, while we are at it, we gotta talk about the cybersecurity policy that was passed in 2021. And it is a document that contains ambitious goals and covers various aspects of cybersecurity. This focus is primarily on government institutions, but it recognizes the need for cybersecurity practices in the private sector as well. And there are 5 dimensions that we see of the national cybersecurity policy. And these are very pertinent. So the very first is the emphasis on deterrence. And according to it, any cyber attack on the national institution will be considered as a direct attack on the sovereignty of the country. Secondly, you have a governance body called the CGPC, right? The Cyber Governance Policy Committee, which has been formed for the implementation of the policy at national level. Thirdly, for the protection of the cyber ecosystem, right? Assurance of support of all stakeholders for the establishment of an internal framework in all public and private institutions was made. Fifth was to create the awareness among citizens about the security threat. And this policy proposes the establishment of a cyber governance policy committee and emphasizes the importance of cybersecurity audits and compliance. Special codes for cybersecurity cases, cybersecurity education, and cross-sector collaboration are also mentioned as key initiatives. So if we now talk briefly about the multiple the cyber attack incidents that have been faced by Pakistan, and if you were to sort of like just comment on that quickly before we conclude. So I would say that Pakistan has been the victim of state-sponsored cyber attacks in the past, right? This has been particularly from India as well. These attacks are carried out by foreign governments or you got state-affiliated groups with the goal of stealing sensitive information, disrupting critical infrastructure, or conducting espionage. So in 2020, it was reported that Indian hackers targeted Pakistani government and military officials' phones and other gadgets in a major cyber attack. Now, the NSCP, the National Security Cyber Policy of Pakistan, it contains measures to effectively combat the menace of state-sponsored cyber attacks. Now, these efforts include creating national cybersecurity standards and guidelines, establishing a national incident response system, and educating the public. Pakistan has also improved, I would say, it has significantly improved cybersecurity cooperation with China, right? Cybercrime and hacking are major issues in Pakistan, and data breaches and online fraud, as well as identity theft, they've also increased due to cybercrime and hacking. And in 2018, Pakistan's data breach, I believe it exposed somewhere around 19,000 people's, 19K people's personal information. So Pakistan, now more than ever, I feel it understands the need for a robust legal framework and effective policies to tackle its online concerns. And Pakistan Telecommunication Authority and the Federal Investigation Agency, while they investigate cyber crimes, they regulate the telecommunication industry and they pass legislation to secure the internet. The Prevention of Electronic Crimes Act of 2017, well, this limits law enforcement activity, but on the plus side, it also provides a very comprehensive, holistic legislative framework for to combat cybercrime. And the PDPA 2021 is a positive step towards protecting privacy and security in compliance with constitutionally recognized fundamental rights. So in conclusion, in spite of the difficulties that Pakistan is currently experiencing in cyberspace, the Pakistani government recognizes that it is essential to develop a robust legislative framework and put efficient policies into place in order to overcome these difficulties. Both the Pakistan Telecommunication Authority and the Federal Investigation Agency, while they play essential roles in the nation's efforts to combat cybercrime, maintain order within the telecommunications industry, and pass laws that make the internet safer for all users, right? The Prevention of Electronic Crimes Act of 2016, it is a robust framework, and I feel that despite the fact that the code is, that the code is mandating of law enforcement action, which is limited, it can still provide a good solution to handle cybercrime. And a significant step forward has been taken in the fight to safeguard fundamental rights of people, including their right to privacy as well as the protection of personal information. So this overall, obviously, ladies and gentlemen, these are encouraging developments, right? Pakistan has made a significant headway in a crucial area thanks to these policies, right? And several areas will still require improvement, obviously, such as allocation of resources by the government for the smooth functioning of these initiatives and the promotion of cybersecurity culture. So bottom line, what we need to do is in order to ensure the effective management of cybersecurity statutes, right? In order to secure the establishment of independent forensic laboratories and efficient justice systems, we need to play a role in investigating and prosecuting cyber crimes effectively. Regular audits and compliance assessments, they are very important in order to identify vulnerabilities and ensure the adherence to our cybersecurity protocols. And last but not least, fostering cross-sector collaboration and public-private partnerships. This will facilitate information sharing, yeah, and it will enable a coordinated response to emerging cyber threats. By addressing these areas, Pakistan can continue to enhance its trajectory in cybersecurity and effectively safeguard its digital infrastructure and sensitive information. So in the next podcast, we will actually be talking about, sorry, in the next video, we'll actually be talking about different cybersecurity courses and which universities we can see, as well as the pay scales, and obviously the career opportunities in Pakistan as well as abroad. So we hope you guys found this session very informative and helpful. And obviously, you're most welcome to reach out to us in regards to feedback on the session and what further we can add to make it much more interactive and obviously productive and illuminating as well. So thank you very much, fellas, for being a lovely host as always. You have a lovely weekend and we'll be back soon, God willing, with much more quality content. Stay tuned to Perceptive Learning Zone and stay blessed. Assalamu alaikum.